Welcome to Artistic Abandon's instructional video series where we teach you how to teach our paintings. My name is Emily Page and I'll be walking you step by step through breaking down today's painting into understandable stages so that anyone can recreate it. Let's begin. Alright, welcome back to Artistic Abandon's sunflower painting now. We're going to start by having everybody just draw an oval on their canvas. So they're going to come down about an open hand width, a little bit more than the width of your palm in from the right hand side, a little bit more than the width of your palm from the top. And then in terms of how big the whole thing itself is, you can see I can fit my hand inside both ways. Alright, we're going to start with our big green handled brush. Dip it into the water, wipe the excess water off and lip the cup just a couple times, and we're going to start by swirling together a little bit of blue and a whole lot of white. Now they can go intense with their blue if they want to. The blue tends to take over very quickly, so remind them that if they want it pale, they need to add just a teeny tiny little bit to get started. They can always add more, they can't take it away. And you're just going to swirl that around. Mix it in really well. Make sure as they mix that they're pressing down so that the water leaves the bristles and goes into the paint so that it doesn't drip when they start to paint on the canvas. When you've got a good color, I'm going to start by coming around the outside of my oval. Again, holding my paintbrush right up close to the bristle like you would hold a pencil to give me more control and resting my hand on the canvas. When you've got a loose oval, then you can just start painting in your whole background. And there's really not a right or wrong way to do this. They can go up and down, they can go right to left. The main thing you want to remind them is just to use plenty of paint on their brush. That helps it go a little more quickly, although this is not one that you really have to rush. This one usually ends a little bit early. So you can let them take their time. But you do want to make sure that they're covering completely. You'll find that because they often don't load their brushes well enough, that you still see a lot of scumbling. So scumbling is when you see like that, you still are seeing a lot of canvas through your background. And I do long streaks. You can do again left to right or up to down. Doesn't really matter, but either way, I try to start at the edge and go the whole length of it, whichever way I'm working, so that you don't see these short choppy brush strokes. You see where it starts to break up? People get really crazy about that, so if you just remind them to take long streaks, that'll eliminate that problem. So I usually have them blow dry the canvas at this phase. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to dive right in. So I'm going to switch to my number 5, and I use a relatively crummy brush for this. And I'm going to come out to the left a little ways, and turn the corner and come straight down. You'll see a lot of my background just getting into it. That won't happen if you've blow dried first. So I'm going to put on the stems for my 4 leaves. So those are our stems. So we're going to have one that's going to come up to the left, one to the right, another to the left, and then we're going to do a little loop-de-loop guy down here at the bottom. And I draw on the shapes of these with everybody. I kind of walk them through this before I fill it in so they can see the general outside shape. For whatever reason, people have an easier time drawing it if they can see the outline before you actually fill it in. So I'll start by giving them the little mountain up here and then have it smooth out a little bit, and then the bottom is just a relatively smooth line. And again, I'm getting a lot of my background in here, but theirs will be a little bit more opaque. Same thing on this guy. So I let the bottom wiggle a fair amount, the top stays relatively smooth. So we've got this little wilty guy down here, so I'll do a couple little lumps and then curl down. The bottom just comes down and then meets it. So again, break that down for them as much as you can. They really can't just do it on their own. You have to show them exactly what you're doing. So then our last little guy is going to be kind of like a heart. So the top of it is going to start like a heart shape, and then it's going to wilt its way down off the canvas. And people's spacing will definitely end up differently. Some people will end up not going off the canvas, especially with this guy. Some people will not have quite enough room, because it all depends on where they place their oval, how far over they come with their stem. Just remind them that it's not going to be next to yours, so no one's going to know what the original looked like, so it's okay if it doesn't go off the canvas, or it does go off the canvas when yours doesn't. All of that is fine. I'm going to clean that paintbrush off and dip into a little bit of white. And I'm going to take a little bit of white along the top edge of my two left-hand leaves, and on that bottom right one. And how much they leave that on there and how much they blend it in is totally up to them. Let them know that it's okay either way. And then on this guy, we're going to come down the center of it. Clean that brush off, dab it on the paper towel. We're going to dip into a little bit of yellow. I'm going to do a little yellow into the tips. On our first two guys, and then on that little guy at the bottom. And then on this guy, we're going to take it in there. And then I'm going to dip into a little bit of brown, and I've actually grabbed the wrong brown. So hold on 1 second. Okay, sorry about the break. Grabbed the wrong brown there. All right, so same paintbrush, I'm going to get a little bit of my brown onto it, and I'm going to come along the underside of my two left-hand ones. I'm going to come along the center of that one on the right, and then the one down here is a little bit different, so I'm going to come down the center of it and then do a couple little lines coming out from it like veins. That is that. So when you're teaching this, I usually take a break right about at this point and let all of that finish drying. When they come back, we'll start in with the actual flower here. So I'm going to start by taking some white, and we're going to flick out. So I'm starting inside so that we're eliminating all of the blue around the edge of our oval. And I'm using lots and lots of paint here. So I'm reloading frequently, getting a ton of paint on my brush. We want this to have a fair amount of texture to it. Especially when we get into our other colors. So you see I've got these little bits of blue in there. We want to cover those. So just go back in, have them pull out. And then you'll find that people tend to not go on top of their stem. They think they have to go around it for some reason, even though it's not connecting here, it's connecting to the back of the flower. So remind them to fill that in. All right, so when you've got a good number of petals coming around the outside, you can clean that paintbrush off. Dab it on your paper towel, and you're going to mix a little bit of yellow and brown together to make what I call baby poop brown. Not the prettiest color. And we're going to fill in the inside. Told you, isn't that hideous? We're going to fill in the inside of our oval with that baby blue brown. And the edge doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to be messing it up a little bit more. We want to get that layer in there so it's got a chance to dry for a second. And then clean that brush off. Dab it on your paper towel. And we're going to dip into the straight yellow. And we're going to go right back on top of where we did our white. And I'll let some of it actually go right where I did it before, and some of them I'll let go, you know, sort of in between them. It doesn't have to be exactly on the same spot. You do want to still fill in at the center. Some of that white is going to streak in. That's cool. Remember, nice thick paint here. You should see ridges. And I'll let the direction of a few of them sort of shift a little bit so they're not all exactly coming perfectly evenly out. I'm going to take a little bit more of that baby poop brown, the same brush again, and I'm going to do just a few little streaks of that here and there pulling out. You don't want a ton of this because it's such an ugly color, but we do want to give a little bit of shadow here and there so that they're not all bright. And again, trying not to be too neat and tidy about it because you don't want it to look like you've done stripes and are very regular with that. So I'll go through and mess up a few of them, add a little extra here and there. All right, we're going to drop that brush in the water. We're going to switch back to our Crummy 5. And we're going to dip into just some straight brown this time. So you'll clean off your brush, dab it on the paper towel, and we're going to start to flick out. Basically like in little V's. And they don't all have to connect to a V. But it's going to start to darken up that edge. Getting lots of paint on your brush. And I keep these guys pretty short. And then we're going to start to dot in the center. So I'm going to start by doing a ring in the center. And I'm going to stay mostly outside of that ring. I'm going to do a couple little dots inside, but not very many. And then we're just going to keep tapping our way out. And you'll find by the time you get to that inside, it'll be pretty dry when you're teaching it because it'll take them a while to fill everything else in. and lots of paint on your brush. And I'm coming right out to those little V's. And it doesn't have to be a super defined edge between the V's and the dots, so don't worry about that at all. And then in the center I'm going to take a little bit of green. Darken up the edge of my ring there a little bit more. And that is how we do it. And then they can sign. If you've got a lot of extra time at the end, you can have them take a little bit more white onto the petals if they want to. If they want to play with their leaves anymore, they can. I do discourage people from trying to go back in and mess with their background because their paint water is dirty at this point, and it'll turn things a little bit yellow, and you'll be able to see where you've patched. So I really try to discourage them going back into the background. So when they're doing their background, they've got time. Let them know that that this is the time to really get that done because they're not going to go back in later. All right, that is it. That's Artistic Abandon Sunflower. For a list of supplies or for more information on licensing Artistic Abandon's paintings to teach in your own home or classroom, you can visit www.artisticabandon.com.